welcome you all to the Filmmakers Forum. I welcome our guests, Obinna and Obi. Thank you very much. We're still expecting Stanley. He will join us shortly. Okay, here is Stanley coming in right now. Great, so I welcome you to this session, which is going to be on AI. We're going to be discussing AI. This is a topic that has been on the lips of everybody for the last few months, and I think it's worthwhile really looking at what exactly is AI going to have, or rather, what impact is AI going to have on our film industry? What should we do with it? Should we run away from it, embrace it, whatever? And we have some experts in the house to guide us on this topic. We have with us as guests Dr. Obi Emelonye, Stanley Ohikhuare, and Obinna Okerekeocha. Obinna, forgive me if I have massacred your name. Okay, so these are the experts we're going to be speaking with today who have agreed to share with us all their insights. I'll just read the profiles of our guests. Obi is an accomplished filmmaker known for his cinematic vision and global storytelling reach. He graduated from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, with a BA honors in dramatic arts and went on to study for a law degree from the University of Wolverhampton. He completed a postgraduate degree in legal practice from the London Metropolitan University and practiced law for a few years before focusing on his first love, films. Since early 2000, Obi has built a reputation as one of the brightest creative minds working in Nollywood. Most of his films have been distributed globally and earned critical acclaim at festivals around the world, grossing over $1 million at the box office. His directorial credits include acclaimed titles such as The Mirror Boy, Last Flight to Abuja, Badamasi, Portrait of a General, the Igbo language epic Out of Breath, and the breakout international films Black Male and Safari. Obi completed a PhD research at Goldsmiths University of London, and his dissertation on Nollywood cinema is presently being published as a book by a renowned publishing house. He is a fellow of the UK Higher Education Academy, Graduate School of Goldsmiths University of London, and also serves as a visiting lecturer at Harvard. Obi, you're most welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Great.
That profile, I beg, who write I beg? I will need to embrace the person well.
It's only the truth.
Stanley,
Okay.
don't laugh me. Stanley, don't laugh me.
Well, Stanley, good to see you, Stanley. Stanley Ohikhuare, popularly known as Stanley, is a renowned author and surrealist whose career spans over 2 decades. He's a trailblazer in Nigeria's 3D animation industry, having produced the full-length animated film Lifespan between 2002 and 2011. In 2020, he wrote the story and screenplay and produced the acclaimed Nollywood animation Lady Bucket and the Motley Mobsters. His subsequent animation project, Artifacts, was recognized as one of the most promising Nigerian projects at Annecy in 2022. In 2019, Stanley's film Trumped premiered at the Marché du Film at the Cannes Film Festival, and his creation, A Tune Away, was highlighted in Cambridge University's African Studies Review for its novelty, relevance, and philosophy. Stanley is now at the forefront of discussions on digital advancements, particularly focusing on the global incorporation of AI in filmmaking. He recently inaugurated the International AI Film Academy in 2 UK cities and unveiled SMC Studios, the cutting-edge virtual film production company committed to creating AI-driven movies. In June 2025, he hosted the first edition of the International AI Film Academy Festival and Awards, BlackAIfest, in Worcester, UK, and then followed it up with the AI Academy Awards in Kent. He established the Real-Time International Film Festival, RTF, in 2016, and has brought hundreds of international filmmakers to both Nigeria and the United Kingdom. In 2022, he led an international co-production cooperation between Nigeria and Trinidad and Tobago through RTF. Dedicated to capacity building, Stanley has imparted his knowledge through teaching and lectures across the globe. His research-driven paper, Lighten the Black Race, earned him invitations to present at institutions such as Pan-Atlantic University, the Film and Screen School in Birmingham, UK, and the University of Worcester. Stanley, you're most welcome. It's good to see you again.
Yep.
Great. Our third guest is Obinna. Obinna is an artist, creative and content director, creative thinker, art director, multimedia artist, film music composer, documentary filmmaker, AI creator and filmmaker, executive producer, musician, storyteller, creative adventure seeker, and creative community builder. Having spent over a decade in the Nigerian advertising and design space, he has had the unique opportunity of building Nigerian super brands. He has worked in offline and online television, film production, energy, branding, communications, and philanthropy at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, working on various productions and key continental marketing projects, especially the $100 million Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program that has impacted the lives of thousands of African entrepreneurs. He was key to the envisioning, creation, and impact of Red TV as a pioneer creative director. The platform has gone on to be a multiple award-winning Pan-African lifestyle and entertainment streaming video-on-demand channel on YouTube, supporting hundreds of young creators, filmmakers, and film festivals across the African continent, powered by the United Bank for Africa. At the moment, Director of Content at Moniepoint Inc, a high-impact microfinance bank, powering small and medium-sized businesses in Africa, providing them with innovative tools for financial inclusion. Obinna is the founder of the Naija AI Film Festival, the first film festival in Africa dedicated to AI. He believes that in an ever-changing world of cutting-edge technology in all spheres of life, one must always and constantly shift one's creative paradigm to remain relevant. Gentlemen, you are most welcome. I'm sure our audience will appreciate that we have some heavyweights here to talk about the subject that we have at hand today. So thank you all very much for joining us. Now, a word to our audience. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box and we'll take them from there. And just a word for those who are joining us for the first time, the Filmmakers Forum is a platform organized by the Nollywood Studies Center of the School of Media and Communication of the Pan-Atlantic University. And the whole idea is to foster conversations between the practitioners in industry and also with the audience of our films. So welcome everyone once again. Let's get the ball rolling. We talk a lot about AI. It's a word or phrase on everyone's lips and has been there for months now. But it's very easy to lose sight of what exactly is it. So maybe we can start from there. What exactly do we mean when we talk about AI? Because for different people, it means different things. Obviously, we're focusing on the film industry and filmmaking. So what does AI mean for us? Obi, let me turn to you first. I see you smiling.
In this bout of heavyweights, I don't know why you're coming to the lightweights to start with. Obinna should have started this contest, and maybe
Obinna is also shaking his head.
He should spread some money because he's the money guy here. Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this conversation. I think I've arrived at that stage in my career where conversations like this will become my mainstay instead of hustling in the field. It looks like we have done our shift and we have a lot to give to the next generation for them to do better than we are doing or better than we've done. And that's the prayer of every good father, that their child would surpass them, standing on their shoulders. Having said that, AI used to be the stuff of science fiction a few years ago, only a few years ago. You know, I remember watching iRobot with Will Smith a few years ago and imagining a world where that could be possible. a few years down the line, we are confronted by that reality that machines have learned, machines are still learning. And as filmmakers, we have kind of weaponized AI to aggregate all the knowledge that is existing in the media, in the internet space into what I call a composite compound intelligent being that is able to answer every question, so long as that matter or that topic has been mentioned online, it would have an answer for you. So in a layman's description, AI is intelligence acquired by machines, in this case, computers and mobile phones and anything that has active memory, whereby it has accumulated knowledge such that an accumulated knowledge and skill. It used to be knowledge only, but now that it's skill, it can draw, it can paint, it can animate, it can do all of those things. So it's accumulated knowledge that exists online that is available for anybody who inquires or anybody who tries to weaponize them or use them for any purpose, good or bad. And I think as filmmakers, we are going to use it for the very good of our industry. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Obi. That's a very succinct definition. Let me turn to Obinna. Obinna, what's your perspective? What exactly is AI for you?
Okay, hi everyone. It's great to be here. So artificial intelligence, I think that if you want to, the name itself, it stems from something that was coined by John McCarthy in 1955. Essentially, it's really, so as the name implies, artificial intelligence. So artificial and then intelligence. So if you look at the word or the connotation or what it means, essentially it's intelligence that is essentially born out of existing intelligence. Like, for instance, if you look at, and what does that mean? So when we talk about AI, we talk about LLMs, essentially models that have been trained, and then of the training of all these models, essentially, it gives rise to different types of models that we interact with, that kind of thing. But because there is some sort of source material, which is the actual intelligence created by human beings, what then happens, like Prof put it properly, it's an aggregation of that information or that data, that kind of thing. So it is intelligence that is born out of already existing intelligence from the natural world, from the world as we know it, brought in such a way that you can actually query that intelligence, for whatever use and whatever purpose that you want. So I think in just bringing it down to regular day use or bringing it to just basic understanding, it is, it is intelligence that is essentially built upon or, aggregated from intelligence that exists from the natural world, that kind of thing. And then I think, I think as we get along, we'll start to sort of break down the uses of AI, and the various areas. But I think to a large extent, this is how I define it, how I think it operates in the real world, that intelligence that is born out of intelligence that already exists, but is not accessible to everybody through various channels and means that we're familiar with. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Stanley, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just keep it simple. I feel like since this is a public conversation, I always feel it's very important to keep things very simple. And for me, the way AI is just the collective reservoir of all our intellect, our knowledge, our skills, our expertise, our experiences that we have willingly contributed to the system. And when I say willingly, I mean it in every aspect of it. Everything you've posted online, everything you've shared, every lecture you've had, every article you've published, every song you've written, every artwork you've created, every film you've ever made. Imagine one system, one space where all our collective experiences and knowledge is being hosted. That's what AI is. And AI is adaptive. It's something that learns. It's not stagnant, it's not static. So the more you use it, the more you query it, the more you generate, things with AI. AI gets more intelligent and is gradually shifting from being generative to being agentic, which is the next phase of AI. Yeah.
Great. Let me continue with you along those lines, because really one thing that all of you have said is really you have all emphasized the fact that AI builds on collective knowledge, collective intelligence, okay, and so on and so forth. Now, what are the possibilities, therefore, for filmmaking, which is our focus today? So, Stanley, let me ask you that. Let me start with you this time. What are the possibilities of AI in filmmaking?
So the possibilities of AI, I'll dare not to call them even possibilities anymore. I say I'll call them expansions. It's because AI now collapses. I think AI has become the great equalizer. It's now what makes everybody equal. It's what makes ideas possible. It's what puts aside anything that could be termed impossible or difficult in the past. And it's something that's going to actually push more people to focus on IP right now than we've ever done in our existence as humanity. But if I use your word possibility, I mean, that is all AI is about. So possibilities, I'll give some practical examples. I've made 5 films with AI now. Codedly almost completing a feature-length AI film that I'm scheduled to bring out in December. I made one before, but I'm not proud of that anymore, so I won't show anybody. It's good. And that's the thing about AI. Anything that you made yesterday is not good today, as long as it's still evolving. So AI is gradually getting to a landing space where you can create things and still be proud of them tomorrow. Before now, anything you created, even last month, in fact, the things I created last week, I might not be proud to show you today, no matter how good they are, because I know how much better they can become. So AI is that thing that collapses a big studio structure to an independent one-man formation. And what a huge team working 24 hours for 7 months will be expected to achieve. You could do it with a couple of ones and zeros in front of your computer. And where it shines is in visual effects. I'll tell you some ways I've used AI because I like keeping things practical. So I've used AIs in ways where I've shot a couple of movies recently where I needed to shoot in central London, and you know how difficult it is to shoot in central London. I go, I get my materials, I get my references and all of that, shoot my actor, do what I want to do, of course, and we'll get to that because now there's legislation that guides how you can use AI, recently published, especially in the European Union. You have to get the consent of whoever you're representing with AI. So there are things I want to film an actor in an airport that I cannot. All I need is to get my assets. What does the airport look like? Get reference images and all of that, and get my actor. I can do set extension. I can do compositing. I can do everything. I can do high-level visual effects. In fact, what I see now with AI is the possibilities are so much that it will now take away the laziness of filmmakers before now. And when I say laziness, it doesn't just restrict it. I'm not restricting it to independent filmmakers. I'm talking about even big studios. I mean, we all saw, was it a Fast and Furious? They drove their cars down the tallest building in the world, crashed all the windows, and the next thing, they are chilling somewhere by the mountainside. There was no police in Dubai to chase them. I mean, like, people have hidden behind visual effects to tell poor stories with a lot of plot holes in the past. Right now, you can't do that anymore. Everybody can do visual effects. I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now is going to be like, this is when they're going to start making movies. Because all that visual effects they've been hiding behind, everybody can do it now. So AI, beyond all the little aspects of filmmaking that it makes possible now, visual effects, compositing, Even in graphic design, you don't need to use your lasso tool anymore. You don't need to use your magic wand anymore. It just prompts it and it happens. I mean, I'm canceling my Adobe subscription when it expires in March. I don't need it anymore. It's a waste of money because, I mean, there are AI tools that do everything Adobe, my Photoshop and Premiere can do right now. So, but where it crystallizes is the fact that all those stories that have been told in the past, every story that has been told in Hollywood from when Hollywood became Hollywood till now, the totality of all of them still doesn't scratch the surface of the untold stories from Africa. So what AI, the biggest opportunity, the biggest gift that AI will give to us, especially in Africa, is our ability to tell our African stories. Because now, whereas in the past we didn't have the budget that a big studio has to tell those big stories, now, if you have your subscription and you follow the guidelines, you can create the same level of visual effects and tell high-end. So now means high-end movies can be made now. High-end movies can be made now without depending on the big studio structure. Just if you know what you're trying to do and you tell a good story. So AI, in summary, for visual effects, set extension, CGI. I'm seeing some interesting things in the animation space. I mean, I'm about rounding up my animation artifacts I pitched in Annecy in 2022. And I'm looking at what I've done. I'm looking at all the hard work I've put into it. And I'm asking myself, in the next 6 months, all this hard work from 2022 to 2025, someone will sit down in 4 months and do the same thing. And so I'm actually already looking at, you know what, when I'm done with everything I'm doing now, traditionally, I'm going to actually, through my other company I've registered, Universal Studios, start doing both live action and animated movies with AI. So animation, visual effects, set extension, everything, the most creative, the craziest, most exotic visual effects you've seen in your life, anybody can do it now in real time. Yeah.
There goes an enthusiast of AI. Stanley, great. I'll come back to you on some of the things you've said. Okay, I'll come back to you. But let me turn now to Obinna. Obinna, well, Stanley has given us some of the possibilities. Well, he says they're not possibilities anymore, realities of what AI can do. Do you have anything to add to that? What has it been like for you?
Well, great. Yes, it's great to, and Stanley, well done for all the stuff you're doing, you know. So a lot to add to that. I think for me, it's really essentially what catalyzed, you know, my starting the Naija AI Film Festival, because really, I think it's really around one question: what is the future of African storytelling? You know, so at the end of the day, you know, where are we going to with the stories that we tell? And I think that one thing that this technology has done for us is, and what I say is, the future of African storytelling is at the intersection of art and technology, and that's exactly what AI provides for us. Now, the thing about it is that, you know, in addition to VFX, you know, high level VFX, in addition to all the other stuff that you can do with the myriad of, you know, generative technologies we have, it's just, for me, what really matters is that, so generally filmmaking, and Prof will tell you this, and Stanley and I have been friends for the longest time, you know, filmmaking is not cheap. It's not, and at every level, at least you have to, even if it's at the lowest independent level, you still have to pay actors, you still have to rent gear because you won't have all the gear. So there's still there's still some budget items to be spent on. Now, what I really like about this, and what, you know, in terms of, you know, building a community of filmmakers, is the fact that somebody in a remote area, as long as he has a good laptop and he has internet, can tell the story he's always wanted to tell without necessarily, you know, because filmmaking is collaborative. You need a team, you need a village to make a film, you know, even if it's the smallest short film. But then if you have an idea for a movie, you do not need, all you need is, you know, you have the imagination of what you want to tell, you have the tools that you can use, and then you go ahead and tell that story. And for me, there's nothing more empowering when you give the filmmaker agency to make a film or to tell a story he was not ever able to tell, you know. And I completely resonate with the fact, you know, what Stanley was saying around, you know, Africa being the next frontier, you know, of storytelling, where there's now the opportunity to tell real, you know, those stories you know we're not able to tell. And when I tell my, you know, we have almost like a 500 community member creators and filmmakers from across Africa, I say to them, you're not empowered with this tool to make another James Bond film or to make another Terminator film. What are the stories from Africa that the world is not seeing? What are those things? What are those stories from your village, from your ancestry, from the, you know, the essences and the nuances that make you our language, our tradition? Those are the things you should focus on and bring, you know, and bring for people to see. Those are the things. And I think, and I know that that is exactly what AI is empowering people to do. And I think, you know, even beyond that, if you look at, you know, what it can even do for people, because let's sort of come back to where we are now. So what can AI actually do for people in Nollywood, for filmmakers in Nollywood? For instance, I mean, if you wanted to, you know, sort of visualize what it is you wanted to make, if you wanted to make, you know, so I want to make a film and I'm thinking of how to visualize the treatment for it and all that stuff. I don't have to pay a storyboard artist anymore or a concept developer. I can completely create the world I'm trying to create based on what I'm trying to, you know, the film I'm trying to make, put that together in a deck and show an investor. AI can help me do that, you know, continuously put down the, you know, in terms of the storyboard of, or, you know, visualizing the story I'm trying to do, the world I'm trying to build, the story I'm trying to tell. I can use that information, put that together myself and go and look for people to fund my movie, that kind of thing. So throughout the value chain of the production process, AI has helped collapse a lot of walls that would have made a lot of things quite, quite difficult. I mean, as simple as, because sometimes, you know, I like to break things down so we don't sort of get carried away. And it's in different levels. You know, there's a generative AI for visuals. Then you come down to what I consider the most important component of filmmaking, audio. Now you can record in a very crowded space, you know, where, you know, you're not even hearing your character or something. Maybe you don't have, you know, all the budget to rent a very expensive Sennheiser microphone. But then again, you take that into AI tools and you can completely clean the audio. You take, you know, audio that is completely compressed in a waveform and split the tracks, split everything, and then, you know, completely deassemble it just with the click of a button. That is how it is empowering filmmakers and creators, and it can do the same for those in Nollywood. I'm sure a lot of Nollywood, you know, because when we started this journey, like maybe like over a year ago, a lot of people were like, I don't think this thing is going to go anywhere. I don't think AI, are you joking? It's going to, you know, the bubble will burst, blah, 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 blah. But now, I doubt anybody's creative process is complete without AI, because first of all, it's not about generative AI. There's also the research side of it, you know, DeepSeek, ChatGPT, Claude, where you're actually doing deep analysis around breaking down your script, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, there are, I'm sure on the call, there are many people who are in various aspects of filmmaking, either writers, either developers, you know, distributors, filmmakers, you know, whatever it is. At each stage of the filmmaking process, there is something that AI can help you accomplish. And what I always say also is that if you're a lazy creator, AI will not suddenly make you a better one. I tell you why. Because the science of storytelling has not changed. A film must have a beginning, a middle, and an end with well-crafted, well-rounded characters. The only difference is that AI is a tool that gives you an alternative, an option to bring it to life. So the rules don't change. Even when you're prompting, you say you're prompting camera angles, it's the same thing. 50 mm, focal length 1.2, you know, it doesn't change. It's the same thing. It follows what, so you must first of all understand the basics of filmmaking, take that and put that. There's a difference. And I tell people that when all the dust settles, people who are able to properly use the tool to tell stories are people the world will celebrate. It's really around, and it's understanding the science, understanding the art, the craft, and then you bring that with the tool. When you use the tool to embrace it. So everybody, so let's not get it twisted. AI is not suddenly going to make you the Martin Scorsese of Africa or something like that. You have to understand the basics of filmmaking. It's a tool that will help you actualize the things that you want to do, but you must understand those things. And then you can start to enjoy the things that Stanley was talking about. You know, things like Runway Aleph, things like LTX, and all those things that can help you do amazing stuff. But it doesn't take away from the fact that you must understand the craft. And then when you do that, the tool essentially just expands what you have or what you can do and your abilities and those things, and is what brings it life. So it's a two-way thing, you know, understand the craft and then take your time. Like, for instance, prompt engineering it's a massive, it's almost kind of like there are levels to it. There's going from good to great, understanding what negative prompts are about, understanding JSON prompts, understanding essentially how to make the tool get exactly what it is. Because I tell you what, before you see all these creations, it's a lot of waste because you keep trying and error because it's generating. So there's still a skill set, there's still a learning curve, you know. So I did, just to add to what Stanley had said, you know, it is something that has really empowered and completely changed, you know, and I tell you what, and let me underscore the point a bit. Ted Sarandos, who's the co-founder of Netflix, came out to say that they have an original made in Latin America called The Eternaut, and he said on the podcast that a lot of those VFX scenes were done with AI. There's also a show called you know, House of David on Prime Video. About 7 of those shots those VFX shots are AI. So this is mainstream right now. So I hope I've been able to add to this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Obinna. Thank you. Now, Obi, both Obinna and Stanley have spoken a lot about what AI can do today and how far extensive it is right now. But there's something else which I have also picked up from what they say, is really AI is not enough. Okay, from what Obinna was saying now, AI is not suddenly going to turn a mediocre like me into a fantastic filmmaker. I must come with something on board. So what exactly, how can people bring this to play? If I want to go into the use of AI in filmmaking, what should I as an individual bring on board?
All right. Obinna and Stanley have really laid the foundation in a very detailed manner for the possibilities of AI. But I think I'll go back to the humble beginnings of AI and see if we can trace our steps back to where we are now. Maybe we'll begin to understand how to incorporate AI in what we're doing. And I was telling somebody the other day, I said, AI has been around for a while, just that we haven't noticed it. You know, you're typing on your phone and you misspell Lagos and it would spell it for you. You write thank, and it will prompt you and give you the prompts for you. And all you have to do is select it. All along, it's been there on our phones and we've been using it. Nobody saw it as AI. All of a sudden, there's an explosion of the terminology and notoriety, I would say, for the term. And AI is everywhere. It's been everywhere before, all this while. So my experience of AI, apart from having prompts on my phone and helping me finish my sentences with the correct punctuation, is that I started in 2020 on a film project called Blackmail, which premiered on Real Time Film Festival a few years ago. Thank you, Stanley, my publicist and my promoter. Anyway, with Blackmail, I got introduced to AI kind of as a tool in filmmaking by my cinematographer, Robert Ford, a Swiss guy. And he introduced me to Midjourney. Midjourney is one of the generative AI tools that generates at the moment. I think they are morphing into videos. At the moment, I think they're doing only pictures. You send it a prompt.
Yeah, they started videos. Yes, correct.
They started videos.
Okay. 3 months ago, correct.
So, okay. I haven't tried that yet. But you give it a prompt and it gives you a picture, and you have to, you know, refine the prompt and refine until it gives you what exactly you want. So I used that as my storyboarding tool, and it kind of lifted a huge scale off my eyes, the possibilities. I imagine a scene as it's written. Meanwhile, I'm writer of the script, so I know what I had in mind when I was writing it. So I prompt, give me a cinematic view, wide shot of an office by a Russian mafia gang trying to extort money from some bloody Africans. Pardon my French. And he would give me a newspaper on the walls, a dark room with computers, really cinematic, scenic views. And all of a sudden, I wasn't just prompting cinematography anymore. I was prompting film sets building. I was prompting lighting. I was getting inspiration for camera movements, framings. And the film did well. It released in 100 cinemas in the UK, opened 1,000 film festivals, including RTL, Real-Time Film Festival. Won an AMA award, was nominated at the MVCAs. But a few years later, I made an Igbo film called, you mentioned in the very long, bombastic profile that you read, called Out of Breath. Out of Breath was like the culmination of all the experiences that I've had trying to generate prompts and inspiration using AI. And I was trying to create a world in the 1920s Igbo society, where they were still burying servants with their dead masters. And what AI Midjourney particularly allowed me to do was to create this world in such a cinematic detail that all I needed was to show it to my team and say, guys, this is the scene. And everybody, lighting designer, set designer, everybody would now come together to achieve that. Once again, that was reflected in the nominations that we had at the AMA Awards and AMVCAs for the film. And he ended up winning an AMA award for production design. Literally, AI should take that credit. Should have come to the stage to collect that award, but I did. So this is us trying to take elements of AI and putting them into filmmaking. I haven't done a full-length film yet, like Stanley has done. I think I know it's going to be very integral in our craft going forward. But I still, just like Obinna said, believe that now that special effects is no longer special, because anybody can have it. If you scroll on your phone, if you see a child swallowing a snake, and what has happened to us is that there's been a numbing of our emotions, a kind of callousness that has developed. When you run for a long time, you develop what do you call it? The thing that I think, what is it that hurts your toe? It hurts your little toe. It's the skin developing a certain thickness and becoming impervious to emotions. Yeah. So we've developed what I call a certain level of emotional callousness, that there's no wow anymore. And now, more than any time, we have to revert to storytelling, because that's the only wow you can generate. Blowing up houses, like Stanley said, upselling down a big building like Tom Cruise would do, is no longer generating their wow, because somebody would do that on their mobile phone, with their own face, upselling down. So it is now the time to go back to the basics of storytelling, because a film is essentially supposed to be a story with a middle, beginning, and an end. And if you master that and deploy AI as a contributory enhancing tool, then we can maximize the impact of AI. If we think that it's going to all of a sudden make me Christopher Nolan, hell no, it's not going to happen. I have to learn my craft. I have to learn to manage a cast, manage a crew, get the best from them, and also now use it to enhance the work that I do. When we do that, and we can make the distinction between the emotional visual pummeling that happens on social media, where people are creating all sorts of things and it hits you and you scroll down. But when you're telling a story, you're not managing. It's the problem that I find with music video directors that come into filmmaking, long form storytelling. You know, in music video directing, just like in skits, you can create magic in 2 minutes, in 1 minute, in 30 seconds, and hit people with it. But when you have 2 hours of people's attention, you cannot hit them all the way through. You have to now find a way to manage the storytelling. And that's where the skill comes in, the ability to tell a story. We are storytellers. AI will be a tool that will make us better storytellers and will not replace us.
Fantastic. Now, let me go back to what you all said at the beginning in trying to define AI. Obi, you said that AI is intelligence acquired by machines, accumulated knowledge and skills. And Obinna referred to it as intelligence born out of existing intelligence, an aggregation of existing knowledge. And Stanley also said something similar. It's a collective reservoir of knowledge. One of the issues that has come up.
So are you using AI to summarize what we're saying? You are using
no,
AI.
I'm using my brain.
AI. No. You are
I'm using my brain. My AI is here.
I concur. I concur.
The real AI.
He's AI in us. He's AI in us. He's AI in us.
No, not at all. Not at all. I wrote it down. No, but the thing is, one of the challenges that people have identified, because you've all said that this is of great interest for African storytelling. But one of the challenges that people are pointing to now is that the databases are really not being prepared for Africa as such. So if we're counting on collective knowledge, how much of what is African can we depend on? For instance, Obi, you said you used AI to generate visuals of an African story of the 1920s, for instance. So really, do we have enough? Is that something more we should be doing in terms of ensuring that truly we will have authentic, when we tap into AI, that we're really drawing from what is authentic and not what perhaps people have fed in, which may not even reflect what's truly African. So how are we going around this, or what should we be doing in terms of ensuring that if we are using AI to tell our stories, that truly it has been prepared to help us in that? Stanley, you put your hand up. Please go ahead.
I just want to say it is, I'll consider it a blessing that the African IP has not been totally captured by AI. And I'll tell you, there are countries that are beginning to empower. I think, was it Korea? There are some countries that are beginning to empower their people in such ways that people are beginning to own the IPs for everything that concerns them, their faces, their fingerprints, their likeness, their voices, the way they sound, just so nobody can exploit it. Exactly. So nobody can exploit it. If Africa is still the gray area, that still fits to the futuristic, submission I made before, where this could benefit us in a very big way. But in the end, the question is, are we owning our narratives? Are we owning our identities? Or is it something that's going to be once again taken, repackaged, and repurposed and shipped and distributed and communicated to the whole world on behalf of Africa by the Western world? I mean, Thor is Shango.
Yes.
Most of the stuff you see in Black Panther are stuff from Nigeria and the rest of Africa. In fact, I saw a post recently that says the new Wakanda series that Disney just did was off a comic book by a Nigerian artist who made the comic book. No credit to him, no compensation. They just took the guy's work and made an entire Disney series out of it. And the guy probably feels lucky that they used his idea. Come on, will luck. How much will luck put in your pocket? So right now, as much as possible, if they don't have enough, but as long as someone is prompting to get something that looks like or that resembles or that captures the essence of any African entity or place or culture, as long as people are doing that, we are also putting that in the database. That's how AI works. You know what I'm trying to say? But in terms of having the totality of it, I mean, if right now at this stage, we can find ways to protect what is truly ours. Because, I mean, storytelling is shifting to Africa. The rest of the world is shifting to Africa to get stories. If by the time they catch up and they are beginning to exploit our stories, they have the rights, then once again, we're back to neocolonialism. So we should begin. Like I keep saying this. I've said this in different for when I spoke at the festival in Canada some weeks back. I still said this. We need to begin to protect our IPs. This is AI. The age of AI filmmaking is the age of IP protection and IP enrichment. Because what people are doing is that people are intentionally setting traps with their IPs. So if you train your model on my IP, like some people have done with Disney IPs, and Disney kept quiet, allowed them to amass followers and build a business around that product they created with Disney IP before they came to put the suit. They came to sue them, knowing that they already have a following and they have a product that generates money. So now Disney says you can't do this anymore. We're stopping you. We are suing you. However, everything you've created with our IP now belongs to us. So they've done the work. Disney takes the credit, makes the money, sues them on top of it. This is the age of IP. Trust me, from now till February next year, all I'm doing is archiving all the IP. I've been doing this since 2019, since COVID year. But now it's even more important that because the moment someone steps out of line and dribbles himself into an IP that belongs to you, trust me, so there's money to be made, there's money to be lost, and there are a lot of lawsuits that will come up in the coming years. So it's a good thing that they don't have everything that has to do with Africa yet. But before we all willingly again, like we've done with AI, put all the information out there, can we please protect our IPs? I've said all I want to say.
Thank you. Obinna, you want to add something here? Oh,
Yes.
sorry, Obi wants to say so.
No,
Okay,
no,
go
sorry,
ahead, please.
Obinna, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So the thing is, so I think you make a very brilliant point that and then Stanley has spoken essentially well around the issue, especially around IP. But I think it's just to create a little bit of context. Now, the truth is, like Obi has said it, AI is not new. I mean, I was talking about John McCarthy coining the name in 1955. We talked about Alan Turing and all the fathers of computer science. Artificial intelligence has been in existence for at least over 40, 50 years. It's been, literally, a thing. It's been something that has been, a bastion of modern sciences, especially around, how it relates to the world. Now, why am I saying this is that we've had different iterations of it in our daily lives. And, at some point it was something that was an exclusive reserve of certain big, big US firms, the superpowers of the world. But now it's not democratized. It's not localized. Now, I keep saying to people, any sort of technology that is in the hands of everybody around the world, trust that it has been used by the powers that be, by economic superpowers. Let's park that aside. Now, when this whole idea of training, what we call machine learning, when you are able to take data sets and train a machine, when they were doing all these tests, a lot of things in the real world, things like books, and when I mean books, anything that is printed, journals, comic books, medical books, newspapers, tons and tons and tons of these materials, and also films, whatever it is that had as of a media nature, whether it's in magnetic form as tapes or whether it's in print, these things were used to train all these models in the name of experimentation and research, because they wanted to push the limits to see how far can these machines go to learn. And then the resultant models are what we see as Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E. Now, when we started to interact with these things, we're like, I remember the first time I saw an AI generated image 3 years ago, I was like, how are they doing this? Because I mean, like Stanley, I've been using Photoshop for like over almost 25 years, and if you are into image generation, but when I said this, I was like, how is this being done? And then I got into Discord and I discovered that there is something called prompting. And it's kind of like writing computer language. And I'm like, just that? And you're able to, I was like, this was like 3 years ago, So my point is, all that data that was used to train machines, most of them didn't really have African information. And that is what Stanley was trying to allude to. Thank God we don't have that yet. So all that is why when you go into any LLM and you type boy, sunset looking into the horizon, by default, you get a Caucasian looking child.
Right.
By default. You now have to specify African or Black looking into sunset with African landscape before you now start to get it. So you have to sort of understand how to put in your prompting information so that you get what you want. It's telling you that all the data sets were not trained with any sort of African information. Right now, it's beginning to change because, and I tell you what, if you go to OpenAI, they'll tell you that, guys who make ChatGPT, they'll tell you that a lot of all their user traffic comes from Africa, because, and like I said, we're massive, consumers of this, of this technology. Now you go in and then you see that what's beginning to happen now is that it's beginning to, the models are beginning to understand and are beginning to learn. But the thing is that there's a massive gap. Because regardless of the model, the detail, the default information is still what you get. There's a lot of massive gaps for us to train our own models. And this is why what Stanley says is very, very important. And I think that this is where we need to look inwards and invest and not just look to the West for these models. Because the truth about it is that a lot of those of us who are, in the AI space are still using models built by either Runway, Midjourney, Halo, Kling. It's still built by the West. That's the truth. But the thing is, the real conversation is, how are we building our own models that are trained on African language, African nuance, African traditions? That is the real information, and build our own data centers. Because, and this is a wider conversation about everything. The only thing we own are the stories that we have, and probably our IP, if we have the intelligence to actually safeguard it and, essentially, register them or trademark them. Because I give you an example, creators who are creating on YouTube, the servers are not in Africa. It takes one legislation for you to turn that off, and everything you've worked for is gone. Something happened in 2020 when, I don't know if you guys remember, there was an outage on Instagram. Everything Meta was off for like 6 hours in Africa. Yes. And people were literally passing out because their businesses, their entire influencer, abilities, everything they built on was gone. That is how it can be switched off. It's like a switch, gone. So the question is, it's one thing to say we need to build African IP, own African IP, but we also need to create the infrastructure to own it, because the real power is about ownership. And I keep saying we own nothing. If you really think about it, we own nothing. And this is why we have problems with our distribution in Nollywood. We have problems all across the board because we don't own anything. We are great creators. I don't think there's anybody greater than an African creator. We can make, Prof makes, I was in Africa when I saw his film, fantastic movie, Stanley, I've known Stanley for the longest time, worked with him. But guess what, guys? That's all we have. When you now look at the distribution framework or distribution infrastructure, apart from it's not, we don't own anything. So I think it's high time that Africa, with its wealth, with the things we have, build data centers, build train models that empower Africans to create IP and own IP, distribute. That is how because at the end of the day, these guys understand that ownership is everything. And that is why the way to sue, take you to court, and with the court order, take away everything that you have. Because it's easier to do. It's difficult to build, but it's easier to steal. You get my point? So and for us to really consider ourselves to that El Dorado we're all looking at, the Shangri-La that we all look for, that place where we all own everything and Africa is thriving, we have to build people. We have to build. And I think that's the essential component that's missing. Where easy for us, where we're consuming content, it's so easy for us to jump in, consume, use it. But then again, what do we own? I'm proud of the guys I have in my community, because I have two guys who have built something called AI Studio NG. That is kind of what they call an AI wrapper that is able to bring in APIs and also train a model where you can actually pay in Naira. And then I have a guy who's, Tabi, who's built something called Speech. It's an LLM that is built using Nigerian data sets where you can actually do text to audio with Nigerian languages and Nigerian accents, which is fantastic. When we had our live AI demo sessions 2 months ago during the festival, we were able to demo some of these things. That is where the investment should go, because ownership, creation is great. We can co-create, we are born to create, but then again, the real conversation is about owning the technology, owning it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Obinna. I will come back to you with reference to what you just said. It will be interesting to go a bit deeper. But just to back up what you said about the prompts, that when you ask a prompt about an African boy looking at the sunset, let me add that if they do give you a black fellow, it's probably a fellow wearing like a loincloth. With a spare.
Exactly. Tropes of poverty and disdain and all that. Yes.
Some okay, Obi, please go ahead. You wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to contextualize what Obinna was saying, and actually have a conversation with him directly about this lack of what I call it contribution from Africa, if it is so important at this stage, if it's important anymore, because of the next phase of AI, which is the agentic, what do you call it, agentic one, which is a case that doesn't rely, it doesn't rely on the aggregated data that we were talking about in our definition. It actually creates a completely original autonomous thinking. That being the case, the accumulated stock of information that was the source material for the original AI generation is going to be obsolete, and it's going to be this very smart, intelligent being that thinks for itself and doesn't rely on a store of knowledge in the past. How does that balance out the lack of input from the African sector?
Yeah, so I think that agentic AI, I think the ultimate aim is even ASL, artificial super intelligence, which is sort of what everybody's afraid of, but let's pack that aside. I think at the end of the day, even for agentic AI, it's still built on data sets. There's still a base, there's still something that is feeding from. Even though it has now reached a certain level of super intelligence, there's still something is built on. And I think that a lot of what I always say is that this is capitalism at play, because at the end of the day, there are companies that actually, because for instance, so many companies have different agents that do different things, depending on the kind of function you're looking at. Now, all of these agents are all built in such a way that they make money for their creators. They make money for people who have actually perpetuated them or built them. So I don't think that they have been built in such a way that they actually provide us, or should I say, with us in mind, if you understand what I'm saying. There is no particular agenda that has Africa in mind. I think the focus is really around how to make money and how to actually create a need, make you very dependent on it, and then again, whatever it is that you want to do. So I feel that, and again, and the way I've seen agentic AI deployed is, for instance, I think there are things around customer service, in terms of how it works within the creative space, especially as it pertains to what we're discussing, Nollywood filmmaking and creativity. It's still something that is subject to how the data sets have been used to train those agents, to actually achieve the end. So, but what I always say about AI is that it's ever evolving. Like Stanley was saying, whatever technology we have today, in another 2 weeks is completely obsolete. So it's still, and again, a lot of it is still unraveling. So it is interesting to see how agentic filmmaking will sort of differ from generative filmmaking, you know, that kind of thing. But the source material is essentially the same. I don't think it has really changed. It's essentially the same. So it's something that is evolving. I would see where that goes. But I think what is important is that, you know, what is wrong in building agentic AI that is completely made by Africans, that is controlled by Africans, that has Africa, you know, I mean, the technology is ubiquitous. Build out, invest it, you know, with our own money, build out our own, you know, models and systems that can actually produce those things, so that we think Africa first. That's the point I'm trying to make. Think Africa, because all these things, again, are still controlled by companies at the end of the day that are looking for what's in your pocket. So that's how I respond to that question. So it's ever evolving. So we'll see where it ends up and how it progresses. Thanks. Prof, does that make any sense?
No, absolutely. You nailed it on its head. On the 22nd of April 2025, the Oscars officially allowed authorized
Correct.
AI films to be recognized in the academy. That changes the game. Before now, it was a taboo subject, and nobody wanted to accept that it was there. That acceptance, that decision has shifted AI, and that's why you see the recent evolution of AI has really sped up, because all of a sudden it's no longer a taboo subject. It's no longer something that nobody wants to talk about, the elephant in the room. Now there's a complete acceptance, international acceptance of it as a means of generating content. And like Obinna said, Netflix have built a whole series based on AI, and they've accepted that some of the shots in some of their films that are mainstream have used AI, and I generated a lot of AI stuff in my film Safari that is opening in cinemas across Nigeria on the 21st of. Am I allowed to advertise on the 21st of November?
As long as you send us the fee afterwards.
No. AI is here to stay. We just have to embrace it, but embrace it in a good way. And I understand Stanley's argument about ownership. You know, this is a gray area. I studied intellectual property law in the UK in the early 2000s. And as far as I'm concerned, everything I learned about intellectual property is obsolete with the advance of AI. So everybody is relearning everything. There is no paradigm that existed that still works. It's a completely new shift. And how do you claim ownership? Originality and copyright is a very, very gray area right now. So I guess what we have to do is to try and protect what we can protect by registering patents and copyrights. But I think, you know, your right to own something stops where my right to own mine begins, and it's understanding the division where that gray area starts and ends. But you know, all we can do is to try and own a little bit more of our infrastructure. We were trying to create a film industry based on cinemas starting from 2010 to 2012, and we're building cinemas at a fantastic rate. We were trying to equal South Africa's cinema count and screen count. And then Netflix came into 2014, introduced a little bit of dollars and a little bit of freedom to our audience. And all of that infrastructure had the carpet swept from its feet. And that stopped, stagnated. And lo and behold, Netflix decided to take a sabbatical. And everything went pear-shaped. So that, if you're looking for an example of the importance of ownership, that is it right there for you. If we had controlled the resources of our industry, particularly, like Obinna said, we are great creatives. I can give you a script every day till I die. But it is when you make that film, how do you monetize it, and who owns that monetizing process? If it's owned by outsiders, In fact, my PhD thesis was written on the impact of Hollywood with Black American film industries, like the blaxploitation films and the race films of the 1920s and 1970s, and how when Hollywood withdrew their support, those industries collapsed. And I was trying to draw an analogy with Nollywood and saying, now that Hollywood has come into Nollywood, if they, and this was when I started the thesis in 2020, if they withdraw their support, what would happen? Lo and behold, 2 years down the line, before I even finished the research, Amazon Prime left. And the industry was thrown into turmoil. And as we were still trying to make heads or tails of it, Netflix decided to go on a sabbatical. And the whole industry was shaken to its foundation. So we really, really need to find a way to own stuff. And I suggested at the conclusion of my thesis that one of the ways to own is to exploit the data and the availability and access that telecoms companies have. If we're able to do that, that would be the key to becoming self-sustaining in terms of monetizing our content. And even though we can embrace in equal partnerships with outside international agencies, but we're not going to be selling our soul to them, or we're not going to be allowing them to buy the industry with just a few $1,000s, just like they've done in the past.
Right, thank you very much. Now, just a reminder to our audience, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box or the Q&A, and we'll take them from there. But to build on what has been said now, also what Stanley said earlier, and what also Obinna has pointed out, there's a lot that needs to be done, that needs to be put in place to protect our IP, to build the industry. What is being done so far? It's one thing to identify what needs to be done, but it's another thing to get it going. And how will this be done? I don't know if there's anything going on right now, even if it is just to sensitize people a bit more, even if it is to start a sort of lobby. So do you have any ideas that somebody somewhere has started something? Stanley, let me start with you, please.
Okay, are you talking about in Nigeria or globally?
In Nigeria, I'm talking about Nigeria.
So
because elsewhere, talking of here, Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so in Nigeria so far, I think we're still just like Obinna said, we're just consuming. We're not, which is why I was excited about this session, because I'm always one who thinks about being an active contributor in anything that's unfolding rather than being a passive recipient of it. And that's the danger. That's where we've been most of the time. As a country and as an industry, we are the receptors. We hardly engage at the foundation stage of things. So right now, everybody is using what Nigeria needs to do is to follow the steps of what is being done in the EU, where they are beginning to put forward legislation. I mean, I don't think that exists right now. My fear again is that, as with most things in Nigeria, when someone conceives that idea, the execution of that idea most likely will not align with what we are thinking about right now. It will most likely be for the ability to control narratives and for political gains and all of that, and which is the unfortunate part. But what I encourage everyone to do is focus on what's happening right now, since Nigeria as a country isn't taking center stage in coming up with legislation. But we should just arm ourselves with the knowledge of what's obtainable internationally. And some of those things include, fair use. Even when we talked about who owns the right to things just now, as long as there's a substantial human input to whatever is created with AI, yeah, you can copyright it, you can trademark it. With the existing laws that I've seen everywhere so far, You want to create a 3D, a double of someone. You want to create an AI image of someone, maybe as an extension of something you filmed on set. You need to get written permission. You need a separate contract for that. So the contract for, as an actor on set is separate. You have a separate contract saying, okay, I'm going to create an AI version of you for XYZ scenes. And it has to be signed and it has to be compensated. And every process of your AI creation. So I think what I'm saying now are things that exist. So I think we're all intellectual people here. I feel this is where we should begin to think about what should that look like in the Nigerian climate. You understand what I'm trying to say? Copyright, trademark. Yes, you can own trademark and copyright for AI created content as long as the human input is substantial. If you want to generate certain things, AI, as long as it's AI in anything you've created movie-wise, you have to admit to it. You have to put it there. It has to be acknowledged. You can't just put it there and say, let people guess. No, it has to be acknowledged. In terms of creating general things, just doing simple stuff. There are things that you don't need to disclose, but most things that have to do with likeness, especially when it comes to things like touching the areas of the deep fakes and everything, you definitely have to. So I feel like what people need to do, and let me go back to the strides of where we're coming from. And I'll allude to what Obi said at the beginning. I didn't say it, but it's something I've always said about AI. If you were not a good filmmaker, AI won't make you a good filmmaker. There are things I do with AI that I'm sure the companies that have the software don't know can be done with those things. So first now, right now, as we speak, I've created. I have different lighting design setups, different camera setups, different. I mean, like I'm not just prompting to say, I know exactly how it's going to end up, as if I'm holding my camera and my lens because I've spent months developing those stuff. Those are things I could actually own if I found a way to own them in terms of the IP. But the thing is, we should begin to look at what's obtainable globally, because the way Nigeria is, once this thing explodes and people start doing more of it, a lot of Nigerian filmmakers are going to fall into that trap where people start coming for you for doing things in the way you shouldn't have, or not doing things the way you should have. So I think we should start from understanding what's obtainable globally, and then us. It can't be the guys in Astro Rock. They just appoint people there. Senior special advisor to this and that. They know nothing. I'm not trying to diss anybody. I'm just telling you facts. It has to come from the users and the academicians and the intellectual people, like people in this room now, sitting together to say this was obtainable in Denmark, in the in Europe, in Asia, in America. How do we find the middle ground that works for Nigeria, given our peculiar situation? But the things I just mentioned now are the basic things. First of all, general, if you look at all of the laws that exist, you can own the rights to something you've created with AI if your human input is very significant. Secondly, if you must include an AI-generated person that has a likeness of anybody who truly exists, you must let the person know, it must be acknowledged. There has to be a separate contract for that, and there should be compensation for that. So there are a couple of those which I can share with you, so you can share with everybody who is part of this session, so everybody can have an idea. It's okay, this was obtainable. But what I want to suggest is, can we have another session as a follow-up to this, where all of us here, including the guys who are attending, who, even if you're not a panelist, everybody here is intelligent. Can we have another session after this where we say, looking at the documents of the legislation that already exists, this is what we can propose for using AI in filmmaking in Nigeria. Let's see what we can propose, because if we leave it for the guys who are appointed to make a proposition, it's actually going to end up being a political tool. I can say that any day, anytime, because that's what happens. Yeah, so far that's what I have to contribute to that.
All right.
That's a lovely suggestion. That's a lovely suggestion, and it's something that, yes, we will try to get everybody on board to work on. I think it will be very interesting, really, as a follow-up from this session. Obinna, please go ahead. You were going to say something.
Yes. So, I also want, so I think the question was really around what government was doing. So there's something called, under the auspices of the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, there is the National Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics. There is actually a prestator that exists. and I've actually spoken to the head of that body, especially when I was doing my festival, I was just speaking to them. I was trying to just do a lot of stakeholder management, and the truth about it is that because there is the multi-dimensional use of artificial intelligence, it's not just used for film and creativity. It's also used in agriculture. It's also used in education. It's also used even in governance. A lot of things that So there is a massive universe, that AI is enabling and empowering, and I think that what Stanley has said is really important, because there is no focus on the film space, as it were, as it relates to AI. So it's important that we start to have those conversations, because AI is broad-based. I know that OpenAI opened a center in University of Lagos. They launched something, I think in their computer engineering department, where, OpenAI would help train, university students. That's great. That's something that's happening. That's massive. That's massive. That's actually huge, So in various sectors around, sciences, engineering, and, computer sciences, there's AI that is pretty much in use, I think what is important is that we start to look at how this can actually benefit the film industry. And I think I really resonate with what Stanley's saying, because there has to be a lot of things in place. What are the other foundational? Because I tell you what, before now, legislating AI has been difficult, even for advanced countries. So it's now they're beginning to really figure out, because there are a lot of gray areas. There, Prof said there are a lot of gray areas, So where one stops is where one starts. So you have to be very careful in, for example, there are some models, some LLM, some companies that only whose data sets are sourced ethically. And what does that mean? It means that all the data sets they've gotten have been paid for, have been properly licensed. So once you come to and you are using their models, you pay a fee, but you are rest assured that if you use your creation somewhere, it has been properly licensed. An example is Adobe Firefly, that is part of the Adobe universe. They say that their content or their data sets, are ethically, their machines are ethically trained. So whatever it is, that because it's commercial, you need to pay for an Adobe license to use their product. So they've ethically sourced their data sets for Adobe Firefly, which is essentially their generative LLM. So there are a bunch of companies. In fact, I was somebody introduced me to a company. This is going to blow a lot of people's minds. A company in the US that are actually looking to use the content that you don't use to train models, and they will pay you for it. So basically, let me explain to you. So for anybody who's edited and shot video before, if you are trying to shoot for something, you're trying to shoot and edit something that will last 1 minute or 60 seconds, you probably will shoot 10 hours of footage. And you chop until you get your desired, well-polished 60 seconds. What happens to the other footage? I'm sure Prof and Stanley have terabytes of rushes over the last 15 and 2 decades. You get my point?
Obinna, beg, give me the contact. I don't have that.
So my point is that there are now companies who would say, okay, give us this footage, we will pay you for it. You understand what I'm saying? Because there is, and again, we all want to understand also that, like when a prof was saying, let me tell you, in case we don't understand it, our everyday use, let me use something that is common to everybody on this call, ChatGPT. Every prompt you put in is also training the AI. So it's kind of like, so think about it, that they've trained the deal with this. So every day, so it keeps, so it's a non-stop process. And this is why, for instance, the chips that are now powering the GPUs, that's why, anybody who's very close to tech news will know that, the market capitalization for NVIDIA now is now $5 trillion, like $5 trillion. And I'm sure by the time we get to first quarter Q1 of 2026, it keeps going, because they have to keep, the importance of these companies, because the chips going to GPUs going to data centers, and that because we need space, acreage. Now, a company is talking about building data centers in space. Guys, this is how important this thing is. So yeah. So back to the conversation. So I had a conversation with the head of Nigerian Center for AI, and they're doing quite some stuff. I think really it's really around, I think, empowering, like I said, really empowering other sectors which are not necessarily a film. So I think it's great that these conversations are happening now around film, especially because at the end of the day, if you look at what it has done for Hollywood, I think it can do a lot, and I think we need it more. And I think that if there's any set of people who need it, and like Stanley said, it's a great equalizer. We need it more because there's so many stories that our people want to tell at different levels, at different, even if it's as simple as storybooks. Being able to generate, there are so many stories to be told. And I think that these technology puts the power in our hands to create. But then again, like I said, we must look to own the infrastructure, because that's how we get it. So I was quickly wanted to answer this question. So we'll just answer things. So my question would be, how do we get the builders involved in the ecosystem and then the government? So I've mentioned it. So, it's about intention. The truth is, we know that Nigeria is a highly politicized space where it's really around it's about political power. Everything that is done is meant to position the leader for political power. It doesn't matter. You can put whatever you want in that bucket. Like everybody's talking about 2027. Everything is around. If you look at the hidden, underlining, invisible line in every conversation is about the next cycle of elections. So we must. It's political power is great, yes, but the point is, so when you get in the power, how are you positioning Nigeria to be a technological superpower, to be let's even forget superpower, to be technologically relevant? And how do we do that is, so we have all these monies, we make all these monies, save money from subsidies. How we invest? Yes, we're now going to start a new tax regime by January, but how are we ensuring that we pump this money into building data centers, empowering, because we have intelligent people. Yeah, I just mentioned two guys from my community that have built AI tools for creatives that people are using. There are many people like that. How do we empower those guys and say, okay, here's X amount of money, and let's build a data center that can support you? I know that MTN has built a data center. They're going to launch that soon. We need 50 of those kinds of things, that kind of thing. We've got the land. I was telling somebody, if you go down the coastline, down the Bejuleki, down there, it's close to the sea. Because these GPUs they have to be very near coolants to cool them. What are we doing with those lands? We can build acres of data centers there. That's close to the water, rather than reclaiming land, build it close to the water, let the water cool down the GPUs, put it there. That's a $1 billion injection that can actually change our economy. Sometimes it's not about fossil fuels and everything is about diesel importation of, those things are great, but technologically speaking, we have the ability to turn things around, if only there is the will to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Obinna. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you in reference to one or two things you said, but later. Let me ask Obi. Obi, you want to add anything to answer Sherry's question? He's asking, how do we get the builders involved?
Obinna is more policy than me. Mine is practice, and I think he has more connections in that world, and his answers are going to be more relevant than mine. So I think he's really dealt with it completely. Right. Nothing to add to it.
Thank you. Let me take you on a different question then. Stanley said that AI is a great equalizer, but my question is whether that is really the case, because Obinna also pointed out that, well, you could have in remote areas someone with a good laptop and internet who could then do so much. But the reality is, do we really have this infrastructure? There are elements of cost, obviously. So there will still be things, the very infrastructure itself is a limiter. So even though a fellow may have access to the AI, but that infrastructure will hold him back. What really is the cost? Because some of these apps will also be expensive. So is it really true that you say that AI is a great equalizer?
Yes and
Yes.
no at the, yes and no at the same
It
time.
is. It
Stanley,
is.
go ahead.
I'll tell you why I say yes. I'll
Sorry,
tell you why
sorry,
I
sorry,
say
Stanley.
yes.
Hold
I
on a
mean,
moment.
like,
Let Obi speak, Stanley. Let Obi speak. I'll come to
oh,
you in a
okay,
moment, please.
sorry.
Uh, I would say yes and no at the same time. Yes, because there has to be a certain level of intentionality about being creative. You can't just passively create. You have to say, "Let there be light," and there will be light. Even God had to do that. So there needs to be some effort, some endeavor, and that is in the form of the thinking of the idea, finding the tools that you need, and paying what you need to pay for. Pay for electricity, pay for subscription for your phone to be able to have the internet to do what you need to do. So yes, that comes at a cost, but it's that reasonable endeavor that everybody who's creative needs to put into their work. You could explain that away as part of the reasonable endeavor. So the AI tools in the hands of a motivated, assured, and confident African storyteller, irrespective of their economic position, is going to be a very important one. But that person, like I said, needs to be motivated. They need to be self-starting. They need to be inspired to use that tool. Just like Obinna said, AI tools in the hands of a lazy storyteller is going to be no use. You need to have the work ethic of a filmmaker, and then you can exploit AI. I don't think it has come to that stage yet where you would prompt your way out of difficult storytelling conundrums. So there's a certain level of endeavor that needs to happen. So to summarize, I would say AI is a leveler to the extent that it makes available to you the tools that you need to enhance your storytelling and scale up to extraordinary levels that money cannot buy right now. However, there needs to be an investment in time to learn the craft, to learn to understand the algorithms, to the workflows of these generative things. It will take you weeks to understand them. So you don't just pick it up and start to make magic with it. That endeavor, that subscription that you have to pay for your internet, that generator that you have to run to make sure that you have the time to render, that is the expense. That is the value that you put in yourself. That is the investment that you put in yourself. And that cannot be compensated by the presence of an app. You have to have it. So it gives you opportunity, but you have to take that opportunity by investing in yourself and investing in what you're doing.
Right. Thank you, Obi. Stanley wanted to add to that. Stanley, please go ahead.
I mean, I don't think anybody could have said it better than what we just said. So we're all on this call. People are joining from all over the world. Some people might be in places where network is so bad, but they're here. But everybody has the opportunity to be on this call through a link. Africa is arguably the biggest continent on the internet at every point in time. And you say we don't have infrastructure, we don't have electricity, but we are on the internet. And for the little token of buying credits to generate stuff uh, that gives you the ability and the power to do what before now was restricted to big studios with maybe 1,000 people walking around the clock to get the same thing you achieve in 10 minutes. Trust me, it is beyond an equalizer. It's a leveler. It is the end, if you ask me. So in the end, what it means is that everybody takes advantage of it. The more you invest in AI, in understanding it and using it, the better you become. Like right now, I don't waste any AI credits for anything I want to do. I know exactly what I want to do. And what I'll tell everybody who's listening is if you are using AI, this is my workflow. I start a project, I create a Bible for everything. So I have this project I'm working on. I open a Word document for every prompt that worked, that gave me the result I wanted. I archive it in that Bible for that project with screenshots.
And so when I'm working on the next project and I want to achieve similar stuff, I'm going to refer to this Bible for this stuff I did that looked like this in that last project. And most of the time, I'm 90% to the least I can be is 85% from where I want to be. And sometimes 85% is just perfect. I don't need more than that. I'm just saying there's a workflow that means you can follow this workflow. But what I feel is, and the same thing I've said about traditional filmmaking, when people ask me about cinematography, I keep telling people, use a camera until it becomes an extension of your hand. Use the AI tool till it becomes an extension of your mind and the physical tools you used to use. So I'm doing lighting design, I'm doing cinematography. The directing is the simplest part. Because, okay, maybe because I'm an animator, I'm used to animating characters. So in my head, what I would have been saying when I'm doing my character animation is what I tell actors. And actors who have worked on me on set will allude to that. You understand? I'm a shooting director, but I'm a conversational director when I'm on set. You get what I'm trying to say? So prompting comes easy for me because I know what I would have told the actor to do. And when I direct people, it's not just about dropping the lines, about all the nuances, about the subtext, about how you turn your head, it's about if you are weak, your shoulders can't be square. Your shoulder has to droop. If no matter, it's just little things, body postures, nuances, everything. And all of that came from my background as an animator. So coming into filmmaking, I've got all of that in. So when I'm directing actors, I'm also telling them what bad animation is. Like you are talking and your two hands are doing the same thing. It's called twinning in animation. So it has to be, if it's bad in animation, it has to be bad in live action. It's like you're doing theater. And that's where you now find the distinction between people who study theater arts and people who studied acting in film school. Because theater artists, they come and they make everything larger than life. They want to scream, forgetting that there's a lapel mic or a boom mic that's capturing their voices. Get what I'm trying? So I feel like if you invest the time into understanding the tool, and you can actually, so the AI tool I use the most is not even the ones everybody uses. It's called Design, D-Z-I-N-E. It, if you will walk past it 1 million times before you think about it, because nobody's talking about it. But guess what I've done? In the past 1 year, I've gone to the back end of design. I've created an entire pipeline of production from that simple stuff that even the owners don't know is possible. And maybe it's when I released my movie, I'll buzz him and say, do you know, actually, I did this with a software because I don't think they know how powerful their stuff. But what it is that I've gone back and what I did was I took what are the basic pipeline, what are the workflows for creating animation, for instance. And I always base all my film production techniques on my animation background. Because if you follow the animation background, everything in live action film still works perfectly well because it helps you with very proper production from character design, from concept art to environments and everything. And so if you follow that norm and you bring it to live action film, you excel, which is why, by God's grace, I think I've excelled in live action filmmaking. Bringing it to AI now, it's the same thing. I'm just carrying the same pipeline of what would I do if I was creating an animation? I need a character sheet. I need this. I need to see how this character looks from every angle. I need to see all the possible expressions and everything. Then I feed them into the program. And then when I'm prompting, it has more than enough resources. It's not thinking. I've given it. So if I wanted to create Obinna, I have all the possible expressions Obinna could have. It's already in the database of that character's file in the software. So when I say smiling and looking goofy, I have something I've generated that exact look and labeled it the right way. So it's easy for it to extract and everything. The same thing with cinematography, with lighting. So I feel like biggest danger you face as a filmmaker using AI is jumping from tool to tool because the tools keep evolving. So everybody has to find the one that meets their needs, stick to it, and only look out when you see a feature in another one that will boost your workflow using the one. But if you won't stop jumping from one to the other, trust me, it's an unending world. You just keep dropping money, it will never stop dropping. You understand? So I'll say that's what everybody should do. Find the one that works for you, stick to it, look for additions when there's a limitation with the one you're using. But trust me, that limitation will not be long because everybody is evolving. But the biggest danger is jumping from one tool to the other because you will never settle. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Stanley. You responded already to the question of Sharif, who wanted to know what tool you're using. We shared it on today. Thank you for the links, Obinna, very useful. Now, let's turn to a question here, which I think is on many people's mind. which is the question Sharif has also asked. Will you say AI is coming for our jobs as creatives? And what should we be doing to prepare for this? Because from what has been said, there are many things that, well, I mean, Stanley himself said it. In many ways, he can do things now without having to depend on some other people. The process has been modified. But this is a question everybody asks about AI. The fear that many people have that AI is going to lead to loss of jobs. So, Obinna, what do you think about this?
Oh, great, fantastic. I like when that question is asked. I'm always looking forward to that question being asked. It's very simple. You are not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to the guy that knows AI. Simple. AI is not going to jump out. ChatGPT is not a person that wears a tie or gets on an Uber and goes to work. It's a human being that uses ChatGPT or uses whatever. So if you do not accustom yourself to knowing the tools, understanding how to use them and using them and getting results from them, then there's a problem. And I think that everybody on the planet, that has access to a computer, who's on the internet, that is digitally savvy and technologically savvy, it is a prerequisite that you understand, and you understand, number one, what AI is about and how to use AI. It's now part of life. It's kind of like a sine qua non now for existence, So what I would say I would employ you to do is, in whatever field you are in, because we are not all filmmakers, but if you're creative, you work in sciences, whatever it is that you do, learn 2 or 3 AI tools that can help you become more effective at what you do. Learn 2 or 3 AI tools that makes you more efficient and makes you more productive, because, the truth about it is that, look, I mean, everybody seen the news that Amazon just announced, about 14,000 jobs. I can tell you that it's really not around AI per se. It's really around the fact that they are completely looking in another direction, and they, so everybody has used, so companies that are running into, situations where they're trying to essentially change focus in terms of what they are looking at for the next couple of years, they hide under this AI, but it's AI. Everything is not AI. You get my point. So it's somebody that has fired you. You need to put yourself in a position where you are empowered. It's like protecting yourself. You have to. It's kind of like when the internet came, in the dawn of the internet, when the internet was not available to the public, because the US Army already had the internet in the 80s. When it was not available to people, with dial-up connection by, say, 1989, 1990, that kind of thing. You had to learn the internet, even if you didn't know how to use a computer, even if you were just new to using a computer, you had to learn how to use a computer first and then learn the internet. So people who had Olympia typewriters from the 60s, 70s, and 50s and 40s, and my Olympia, they had to let go of it. It's kind of like, and I tell people that, look, this AI thing is not a bubble. It's part of technology. In the 1600s and the 1500s, during the Renaissance period, where we had great, royal families, how were their portraits being captured? A painter, Michelangelo, Caravaggio, they'll sit down with the families for days painting precisely. And if you go to the royal, the royal gallery, the National Gallery in the UK and different galleries across the world, the Reich everywhere, you would see big portraits of kings, queens, name it. But as soon as the camera was invented in the late 1700s, early 1800s, what happened? It didn't mean that portrait painters ceased to exist, but we did not now need to spend so much time painting just one click of a picture. And then the motion camera came, and then that's how technology evolved. So you must make yourself relevant at each stage. AI won't take your job, but the person that knows AI is the person who is right behind you, waiting to take it from you. So that's how I'll answer that question. I hope that's clear.
Can I just quickly add to?
Thank you very much,
Obinna.
Yes, please. Yes, please, Obi, go ahead.
Yes, I think that the best analogy for the impact of AI and what Obinna said in terms of the demon is not AI. It is your inability to incorporate AI into what you do that will make you probably lose your job. Let me just take us to what happened between Blockbuster and Netflix. Both of those companies were selling DVDs in the 90s, Blockbuster more successfully than Netflix. But what happened when the internet became mainstream, just like Obinna said, when the internet became mainstream, Blockbuster refused to evolve. They continued to sell DVDs without incorporating the internet into their business plan. While on the other hand, Netflix saw the future, incorporated the internet into their business, started streaming when it was on fanciful, it wasn't as exciting as it has become now. They started streaming because they aligned themselves to that internet. Netflix is a multi-trillion-dollar company today, and Blockbuster is a relic from the past. So if you want to be a relic, stay where you are, dig your heels in, and hold on to your sketching pad and do everything manually. If you want to evolve and be part of the future, learn new skills, embrace new ideas, embrace new innovations like AI, and it will make you better. And you will always find, because like the bottom line of all of this is that it's the human stories that make us storytellers. And bringing it back to filmmaking, it's the human stories that make us storytellers. So whatever we do with AI, it is our ability to incorporate it into our stories that would make it useful. And once you can do that, in your side of, if you're a script writer, start to use AI to at least interrogate your script, analyze it to see where it has faults, and then you can use your brain to now make those corrections. If you're a production manager, planning your script, planning your shoot, doing your shooting schedule. If you're a cinematographer, experimenting with looks, doing a mood board, and all of you can, whatever you do if you're a costumier, ask AI to design a costume for you for 1920, and you'll find that you will not have people tying cloths on their loins and on their breasts in your film. So whatever you do, you find that AI would take you to the next level. If you embrace it, you won't lose your job. You'll be better at it.
Great, thank you so much. Now, Obinna, I said I will come back to you for something you said. You spoke about some of your people who have built apps. The process of building apps and keeping them going is something that is costly. So how is this been dealt? Because this is really a challenge for across board for everybody. If we're talking about being original in this space, building something for the African space and so on, this is an aspect of things that holds people back, the cost. So how is this going with your people? How are they managing to keep this going?
Yes, it's, to be honest, I mean, nothing good comes easy. Whatever it is that is going to provide value, there has to be some cost attached to it. So I know my good friend Afam, who's built AI Studio NG. I'm just going to put a link there so that people can see what I'm talking about. AI Studio, yeah, for NG. It's fantastic. So basically, yeah. So for him, he has sort of like an engineering programming background, and is moved to program. So now the cost, so the basic engineering cost of building a site, first of all, and then paying for the APIs, because the APIs that he has to put in backend, you have to pay for them. They're not free from all the various LLMs, and he puts that in. And there's the recurring cost of course, hosting the site and things like that. So it's again, it's really about intentionality. You know exactly what it is that you want to build. But what's also interesting is that he's also being able to market it. Like, for instance, we have, like I said, we have almost 500 people in our community, and we urge them to patronize AI Studio Naija so they can get credits, and you can pay. What's interesting is that, for instance, if you're going to pay for Midjourney, things like Crea, Midjourney, Free Pick, you have to have a US card. So what he's not been able to do is that this is something called a wrapper. So he's wrapped the software around APIs, and you're able to pay your Naira card, and then you have Naira, which is essentially good. So that's what he's been sort of trying to develop, and also on the side trying to train a Nigerian LLM, that kind of thing, that is made by him, so that he can. That's the grand plan, but it's going to be it's not a cheap thing to do, but it's something that is important to do. And then speech, on the other hand, let me also share the link so that everybody has an opportunity to see that. Speech is audio to text to audio. Yes, which is essentially Nigerian voices. Yeah, so that's speech. Yes, essentially the same thing applies, you know. The money is made when people actually subscribe, you know, pay for credits to use the app, and then that's how money gets invested. But it truly is. I mean, you're not making a lot of money. If you go to pricing, you can see, you know, from $15, $50 scale, they can scale, you know. I don't know, but this is essentially how they make their money back, you know. And in some cases, the first couple of years you make a loss because you are looking, it's at adoption, you know, and then obviously you have to invest in a marketing budget so that you can get it out there. So I think the great thing about this is that Nigerians are building things, you know, but then again, it's something that is self-funded, it's something that is independent or completely done by the individual. So, and that is why we're saying that there's a lot of government intervention that is needed to provide some sort of fund, even if it's an AI intervention fund that goes to empowering people like this, because there are so many of them building. Even my wife is building something, you know, around AI, you know, that kind of thing, building a functionality that will serve a certain purpose, you know. So I think that for me, I think there's a massive opportunity, you know, if we empower this sector and what it can do for our economy internally, you know, that kind of thing. So so at the end of the day, you know, it's really around having the will to do it. It's not going to be the most affordable, but you know, you have to start from somewhere. And what's interesting also is that there are apps like Lovable that essentially people without any sort of coding background or any coding knowledge can actually build apps. And there are so many examples of that, you know, apps like that, where you can actually, you know, you essentially build an application or a website from scratch without development or coding knowledge or experience, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, it's incredible times now. You know, things that you imagine you are trying to build up a startup, you had to talk your financing, your operations, and all that stuff, and then, you know, marketing and all. Now, as long as we are only limited by our ideas right now, you know. So the question is, with all these tools, what are you going to build? Because there is no excuse. Because if you want to build an app, a fully functional website today you can do it in the next 1 hour with Lovable. Done. You can't, you know. So the question now is, you know, and I think it's probably the greatest, you know, decade or the greatest time for creatives anywhere in the world, because those things that you've always thought about, now you can bring them to life. You know, they're really, I mean, the barrier really is really that you have access to data and you have a functioning laptop, you know, that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, it's not cheap, but it's also not super expensive. It's really around your objective, what is your why, and then, you know, just being able to figure out. I think more importantly, it's really around solving a problem. You know, and I always tell people that, you know, one of the greatest ways to financial freedom is by solving a problem. Pick a problem, figure out what that problem is, and don't do this because, oh, it's fun, it's great to build these things. No, it's what problem are you trying to solve? And once you're able to do that, you know, and then there's some sort of, you know, meaningfulness attached to what you're trying to do, and then you build value. That kind of, you know, so you can say to somebody, oh, I built this app using AI that helps people do X. This is why people can open up their pockets and say, okay, we'll invest in it because it has, you know, and I got build. There's something called, you know, an MVP, minimum viable product. What's the basic thing that this thing that you're creating can do, and you have a demo for that kind of thing. So nothing comes, again, I must say, nothing comes cheap, nothing comes easy. You have to have the will to do it. You have to figure out ways to do it. And again, I tell people sometimes, before you go cap in hand, invest what you have, use what you have, put in what you have, you know, that kind of thing. What's that thing in your hand? For those of you who are Christians, use it. And then when you build something and you solve a need, like for instance, in the film space in Nigeria, in Nollywood, there are myriads of problems. And that's why I'm always, you know, Obi Emelonye is a good friend of mine, who is somebody who has tried to use technology to solve a lot of problems. Things around, okay, how do I find credible projects to invest in? You know, one of the challenges we have here is that Nigeria is a low trust society. So maybe Professor Ikechukwu has $1 billion to invest in a film in Nigeria, but who is the credible producer he's going to go to? How can he find a credible crew? So NII builds this thing and calls it NollywoodFilmmaker.com, where you can get real producers. They get through a vetting process, and then you can find producers that have a proper discography, people who have worked on projects that you can track, you can see, kind of thing. So there are different ways, and that's why I feel technology is essentially what is going to really, really, really create the Nollywood of our dreams. But then again, like I said, you have to be intentional about it. You have to invest your own money into it, and you have to be solving a recognizable problem. I hope this helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Obinna. Thank you so much. Well, our time is just about up, so let me ask for very brief last words from everyone to wrap this up. I wish we had enough time to talk about the ethics of it all. That will be that really is an important aspect. But we did touch on some things as we went along. So just a few last words. Obi, you want to go first? Last words to wrap this up.
Oh, thank you very much to Atlantic University for this initiative. I think it's fora like this that is required to advance conversations that would take the industry forward. I am happy to have participated in this and join my voices with those of very experienced and very powerful people in the industry from different perspectives of that industry. A summary of everything that we've said today is simply that AI is a tool. It is not a person. It is a tool that we can imbibe, incorporate to enhance the work that we do. And if we do so, and keep our eyes open and keep evolving and keep developing ourselves, because the biggest problem with our industry is that people arrive and say they have arrived, so they don't have to do anything anymore. You don't have to study anymore. You don't have to learn new tricks anymore, new things anymore, because you have arrived. If you never arrive, then you stay humble and you keep learning the new things that come up, and you become relevant. And that's how you reinvent yourself constantly. AI is an opportunity for everybody to reinvent themselves. If we take it, we would have a better version of ourselves that is future-proof. God bless you all.
Great. Thank you so much, Obi. Stanley, last words?
Yeah, last word would be don't let the big corporations fool you. Don't get into the bubble of, oh, it's AI is not real film. Oh no, it's not good. Oh no, AI film is not real film. Trust me. I showed an AI movie when I spoke at the African Film Festival Saskan Shewa in Canada. Before I spoke, they showed an AI movie I made. And so when I was speaking, and I said, just like the movie we just saw, and someone said, was that AI? You see? So don't get in that bubble of, oh, people will never accept AI. Behind your back, they will use you to create all the buzz and make all the noise while the big players go and do the business behind the scene. And don't be the guy who's going to be caught in the loop too late to even recover when the big players now finally come out and say, yeah, because they are already buying up AI companies. Big studios are buying up AI companies. Big studios are investing in AI companies. Amazon has made an investment in an AI streaming platform. I'm just saying there are big things happening behind the scene. They leave us to be the pawns, to be saying, no, it's not good, it's not taking our jobs. They leave you while they seal the deals behind. And then don't be the guy who ends up as the guy who's still putting his typewriter under his armpits while everybody moved on to the computer and lost his job, because AI is here to stay. AI is not going anywhere. It's been less than 4 years since Will Smith was eating spaghetti and looking ridiculous. Now, you will call real life AI and AI real life. That's where we are. So don't be a fool. Don't fall for the gimmicks. It's business as usual for the big players. Don't get caught up in the web. Don't be left behind. Scale up, put yourself out there, learn the tools so that you'll be left behind. That's all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Stanley. Now, remember, we're going to come back to you. You promised us a document for us to study and come back and really come up with what we can do. I'm going to hold you to that.
I have to share that with with my laptop. I'm using my phone. I'll share it after the session.
No trouble, please.
Yeah.
No trouble at all. We'll do that.
Okay.
So, Obinna,
Yeah.
last words?
So thank you, Prof, for having us today. It's absolute pleasure to share my insights and to be a part of this and to share with everybody. What I would say is, you know, you're only as good as the knowledge you have. We live in the knowledge economy. You know, we are essentially in a place where, you know, what keeps you relevant is the knowledge you have. And then we're now living the age of, we are now in the age of artificial intelligence. So do well to acquaint yourself with everything around you that is technology based. Keep your ears close to the conversations. Have an open, I think beyond everything else, have an open mind. You know, sometimes and sometimes you may hear things that may shake you, but be curious. So what I'll say is, number one, have an open mind, be curious, investigate, and be willing to unlearn and relearn. If you're able to do these 4 things, nothing will take you by surprise. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Olorenti has just dropped a question which we will not be able to treat, whether we have enough people to teach AI or we just have to be self-taught. Well, as Obi has told us, we have to keep learning. And much of that learning is going to be self-paced. So truly, I think we all have to apply ourselves on this one. So Obi, Obinna, and Stanley, thank you ever so much. This has been so enriching and we've learned a lot. And thank you so much for the various sharings, the links and so on. I think they're most useful. Thank you all for all of that. And we look forward to being able to host a follow-up to this following Stanley's suggestion on this one. I think it's useful. Thank you all so very, very much and do enjoy the rest of the day. All the best.